So, Wanelisa, why are you so obsessed with whiteness? Why can't we be preoccupied with being successful in business, in the arts? I mean, like Ferial Haffajee says in her book, what if there were no white people?
I think for me, I'm not obsessed with whiteness. I'm obsessed with Black liberation. And I'm obsessed with the rebuilding of Black humanity in this country. So to read my obsession with Black liberation as an obsession with whiteness, I think is incorrect, because we live in a society that is very dishonest about the kind of power, the kind of brutality that white bodies, even without doing anything, hold. And so for PJ Powers to come and sing a very mediocre song and make money over the years about using Zulu culture and using cultural appropriation is exact kinds of power that white people hold in this space. And there's a generation of young people who are sitting, some of them sitting in this audience, who are moving away from the lies of Mandela to say, actually, we want the land at this point in time.
Woo! How can you be a white South African and not be racist? And I don't mean that in the way of you necessarily consciously think that Black people are inferior. I mean that there is just no way that you could have been born into this society without internalizing racist assumptions. But let's not make that the end of the conversation. It's not racist, it's just a fact. Let's not make that the end of the conversation. Let's say, yes, sure, we are all racist, and what are we going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not make that the final insult.
Monique, do you agree with Rebecca saying 100%?
No,
all white people are racist?
I totally disagree with what she's saying. I think that whiteness and white privilege has become this buzzword that you hear all the time. But actually, it's a way to silence anyone that is not of color. What she was basically saying is, if you are a white person, you are racist just because you are white, without any evidence. I am not a racist person. I respect all people. I respect Black people, white people, colored people. So I feel it's very offensive to say that all white people are racist. It's just not true. And I think that to make whiteness the enemy is easier to fight than to fight the crippling corruption, to fight unemployment, to fight to fight the wealth gap, because the political leaders that we have cannot fight that stuff. They don't have the skills to fight that, and then they make race the problem.
Ooh, so Sarah.
Sorry.
You look like you totally disagree here.
I do totally disagree. I think that I'm a little bit torn because I really want to reply to a bit of what Monique has said, but I also really don't want this conversation where we have a potential to disrupt whiteness to be centered around the type of whiteness that is displaying the racism that you say that you aren't. I mean, the comment about people not having skills is inherently racist.
Yeah.
Just to point out one thing.
How are you doing, guys? Now, living in Africa, a lot of things are going to amaze you, and a lot of things are also going to make you cry. If you are truly an African is the person who will be the first one to ditch their culture, ditch their heritage, ditch their tradition, and accept someone else's tradition and cultures. You understand? But I can't blame the Africans for this. The reasons why the Africans think that our culture and our tradition does not add up. South African white lady. Yes, a South African white lady. How white people got to South Africa, I don't need to explain that. One thing you need to understand is this. Black people in South Africa are ready to ditch their own culture and accept someone else's. But the white person is very clever. Not only the white person, other races apart from the black race are smart. Everywhere they go, they bring their culture with them. They bring their tradition, they bring their food, they bring their dresses. Yes. That happens a lot, and I find it so amazing. Now, there's this lady who is really dancing and singing fluent Zulu. I don't know if it's Zulu or Xhosa. I've been playing in the rain at Jabulani. How did you come to learn about this? I want us to jump into this video, get to see and understand why things are happening as they are doing so.
Black people are monkeys who leave litter on our beaches. rape of babies is part of black culture. These are just two of the racist outbursts by white South Africans this year. Are they the ravings of crazy individuals, or is something deeper going on? Could this be a sign that 22 years into democracy, the social and economic power behind white attitudes and white privilege are limiting South Africa's progress towards equality? And if so, how do we take apart these structures of whiteness? With me to discuss this are Wanelisa Kaba, student and activist from UCT, and Forlist, Corne Mulder, Chief Whip of the Freedom Front Plus and Rainbowist, Henny van Vieren of the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Funny man John Flismus is here. So is writer Rebecca Davis. PJ Powers is in the hizzy. We also have commentators Ivo Vechter, Mweletsi Mbeki, and Ibrahim Harvey. And from national government, we have Abraham Serote, Director of Social Cohesion. And in our audience, we have South Africans from all walks of life. Welcome to you all. You at home can send us your comments on racism and inequality. Connect with us on Facebook or on Twitter. But before we start, take a look at this.
Mandela dreamed of a non-racial South Africa. In the struggle, white comrades fought shoulder to shoulder with black leaders. Some whites were injured or lost their lives for freedom. There were also white musicians who used their voices to challenge racism. But times have changed. The memories of white South Africans prepared to die for equality have faded. Instead, the headlines are filled with stories of white people spouting hatred, superiority and racism.
Sparrow insulted black people who were on the Durban beaches over the Christmas period. Sparrow says she will now call black people monkeys.
Penny Sparrow and Judge Mabel Jansen may not represent the views of all white South Africans. But perhaps their racism is a sign of things to come in a South Africa in which poverty is expected to be black and wealth white.
When we look at racial tensions, especially between white and black South Africans, I think those tensions have been made too much of. Certainly white South Africans don't have the kind of economic and related power that they used to. As people interact more in the workplace primarily, which is where we spend almost all of our waking days, as we interact more between the races, some of these preconceptions, I think, will disappear.
The problem is that we tend to focus on the interpersonal acts of racism, acts of inequality, without understanding that there's an entire structure which makes such interpersonal relations an inevitable outcome. And I think if we focus on the interpersonal, we tend to lose sight of some of the institutional and historically entrenched reasons for inequality and racism in South Africa. But also there's a need for a significant asset transfer in South Africa. It cannot be correct that the people who are historically dispossessed of their land through violence, plunder and rape in this country are the same people who still need to beg for that land in order for them to live a life in South Africa.
In South Africa in 2016, white families earn 6 times more than black ones. Many young black South Africans are sick of waiting for Mandela's non-racial society to come about. With the lived experiences of South Africans so far apart and defined by race and poverty, is South Africa headed for an uprising against the rainbow settlement?
So, Wanelisa, why are you so obsessed with whiteness? Why can't we be preoccupied with being successful in business, in the arts? I mean, like Ferial Haffajee says in her book, what if there were no white people?
I think for me, I'm not obsessed with whiteness. I'm obsessed with black liberation. And I'm obsessed with the rebuilding of black humanity in this country. So to read my obsession with black liberation as an obsession with whiteness, I think is incorrect. because we live in a society that is very dishonest about the kind of power, the kind of brutality that white bodies, even without doing anything, hold. And so for PJ Powers to come and sing a very mediocre song and make money over the years about using, Zulu culture and using cultural appropriation is exact kinds of power that white people hold in this space. And there's a generation of young people who are sitting, some of them sitting in this audience, who are moving away from, the lies of Mandela to say, actually, we want the land at this point in time.
Woo! Good child. PJ, I'll give you the honor of replying. Yeah.
With regards to Jabulani, in 1982, it was probably before you were born, I went into Soweto with a rock song called You're So Good to Me. It didn't have a black note on it. I think some of the older people may remember it. It was You're So Good to Me. It was a rock song that suddenly charted on the Radio Zulu charts. So if you think that I adapted black culture, that is not the case at all. In fact, the black people put me on their wings, okay, and carried me and have ever since. It is something I'm incredibly proud and grateful for. And it hurts me to see somebody that I have fought for my entire life, okay, in my own way, in what I can do. I'm not a politician, I'm not a statistician, I can't do any of those things. What I can do is talk out about whinging whites that we have in this country. And I will always have loved and always will love this country. The book that I've written is dedicated to the people of Soweto.
All right.
There you have it.
I call you a rainbowist. I think we all used to be rainbowists at some point or other, at the start of our democracy.
Yes.
But a lot's changed. A lot has happened.
The question is
Are
why?
your ideas still relevant?
Absolutely, because the Constitution is still relevant, whether we like it or not. And we all remember what it was like in 1994 and the whole concept of the Rainbow Nation. Why do we have this debate today? What changed? I believe that leaders should set the tone. And President Mandela and other leaders at the time set a certain tone in terms of why and how we should take South Africa forward.
All right. Rebecca, are all white people racist?
100%. How can you be a white South African and not be racist? And I don't mean that in the way of you necessarily consciously think that black people are inferior. I mean that there is just no way that you could have been born into this society without internalizing racist assumptions. But let's not make that the end of the conversation. It's not racist, it's just a fact. Let's not make that the end of the conversation. Let's say, yes, sure, we are all racist, and what are we going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not make that the final insult.
Monique, do you agree with Rebecca saying 100%?
No,
all
I
white people are
totally
racist?
Disagree with what she's saying. I think that whiteness and white privilege has become this buzzword that you hear all the time. But actually, it's a way to silence anyone that is not of color. What she was basically saying is, if you are a white person, you are racist just because you are white, without any evidence. I am not a racist person. I respect all people. I respect black people, white people, colored people. So I feel it's very offensive to say that all white people are racist. It's just not true. And I think that to make whiteness the enemy is easier to fight than to fight the crippling corruption, to fight unemployment, to fight, to fight the wealth gap. Because the political...
Wow, this lady has just said that she fought for the rights of black people in South Africa, and she's being insulted by this young lady. This lady might be right. We also had Africans who were bad to fellow Africans, black people who were given a little taste of power, thoroughly oppressed fellow blacks. So the white lady coming up front and saying that she helped fight for the rights of black people, I kind of agree with her, because this is true. It's very true. Given the laws of human nature, our humanity transcends cultures. Our humanity transcends traditions. Our humanity transcends all of this. We are all belonging to what we call the human race.
Political leaders that we have cannot fight that stuff. They don't have the skills to fight that, and then they make race the problem.
Ooh, Sarah.
Sorry.
You look like you totally disagree here.
I do totally disagree. I think that I'm a little bit torn because I really want to reply to a bit of what Monique has said, but I also really don't want this conversation where we have a potential to disrupt whiteness to be centered around the type of whiteness that is displaying the racism that you say that you aren't. I mean, the comment about people not having skills is inherently racist.
Yeah.
Just to point out one thing. I think we should have the conversation about how to give back the land. I think that's what we should do.
Do you agree with Monique?
Well, I think that what we need to look at is an element of complicity, Mr. Chaba. And I think that fundamentally what we haven't unpacked, we've gone through the TRC process, and what we haven't understood is how white people have benefited firstly from apartheid, and secondly how a particular group of white people in this country have become fabulously rich off the back of apartheid. Now, I think that white complicity, overall, we can look at, and the responsibility to promote social justice in our country, firstly. But when we have two families, there are two families in this country, the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts, names we don't necessarily all know, who have as much wealth as 50% of our people. It's an extraordinary crime. We should call it nothing else. That must be challenged. It's a crime against our humanity, and it's the humanity of 50 million people in this country. That's precisely where we need to focus at and say, how did you make your money during apartheid? How did you build those networks? And how do you retain and entrench your power in the last 20 years? And quite clearly, no one is disrupting that power fundamentally.
All right, Loveland.
I think what Elisa was trying to raise earlier about, PJ's song, yes, struggle hero or you fought and whatever. I think the problem is that we forget that white people today have the option of tapping out, right? So you can sing Jabulani and you can dance, but then you can also remove yourself from the lived experiences of the culture that you're trying. I'm sorry, I'm speaking. From the culture that you're trying to represent. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just the truth of the situation. And I think in South Africa, this is really what the conversation needs to be about. We need to talk about, why did apartheid end? Why did colonialism end? It didn't end because people's perspectives and behavior changed. It ended because it was expensive. It ended because white people couldn't travel anymore. It ended because they couldn't go and play sport, because entertainment for white people was over. Therefore, they needed to bring equality. That's not, we need to be honest. We must be honest about this. So for me, when we want to have this conversation, it's easy to say, let's talk about the Rainbow Nation. Of course, you can look forward if your life was never tainted by the experience of apartheid. Of course, you can look forward. It's not the same. And that's the experience of being black, constantly having to reconcile your existence, reconcile your humanity, and demand respect and demand a level of humanity as opposed to what other people just get automatically by being white. That's the reality. You don't have to label it as racism if you don't want to, but it is what it is.
All right. We do also have to think about what whiteness means. Is it about skin color? Mbeki, Ndate, you have said that perhaps we need to target the black elite. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, there was a comment about Oppenheimer and Rupert, but what about Patrice Motsepe? He's a multi-billionaire. So why aren't you mentioning him? What about Cyril Ramaphosa? That's another multi-billionaire in this country. What we're talking here, black liberation. Black liberation, we achieved black liberation in 1994. Okay, you may not like it.
Well, it's not felt in this room.
You may think you got nothing out of it, but we have a class of black people here who are multi
as we should have.
Yes,
it is their country. We should have rich black people.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have them. I say we don't have, blacks are not oppressed by anyone in South Africa.
Wow.
If they are, tell me who's oppressing them. If they are oppressed,
so if
who
we
is
are
oppressing them?
if we are oppressed, Wanelisa, who is oppressing us?
I think I hear what you're saying, because, you writing your books and the political elite in the ANC are not oppressed, because you are doing the oppressing at the moment, along with white. You are the gatekeeper of whiteness. You represent the gatekeeper of whiteness. And you sold us out.
I think this lady really has good points in what she's saying right now. She's trying to explain that apartheid ended because the white people would not fund the lifestyle of oppressing black people. You could hear the other gentleman said, there's a particular family in South Africa. South Africans, if you are watching this, kindly confirm with us. It's called the Oppenheimer family. They own 50% of resources in South Africa. What the other 50% of population owns, they own the other 50%, which now makes the total economy of South Africa. This is very, very mind-blowing. It's like two families owning 50% of the resources of a big country like South Africa. Ain't justice at all. I don't know what justice is, but this one ain't one. Now, she's saying that this white lady can be singing these chabulanis. People can be willing to accept the black culture, but they will only accept this black culture after they remove the blackness that comes with it. They accept black culture. We see people, white people, Chinese, Indians, dressing like the African Americans, but they don't want to be associated with the black people. When they meet black people in the trains, they meet black people in the roads, they mistreat them. But how they dress like the black person. That is what this woman is trying to say here. I think if you don't like me, don't also like my things. Leave my things for me because you don't like me. If you like me, then go well and good. Take anything you want with you. But if you don't like me, don't take anything that belongs to me. That one, you are now being a hypocrite. We have also Africans and humans who do the same things. Let's continue watching this interesting debate.
South Africa. It controls the army of South Africa. So, now my sister here says she wants black liberation. I have been asking her during the interval, she needs to explain to us who is being oppressed by whom and how is she going to liberate
I think Simpiwe has answered that for us.
No, she didn't. She said she's not blaming white people. She didn't say white people put her into the informal settlement. But now you're not dealing with my question.
Sure, no problem. But you asked two questions. Who is being oppressed and who is doing the oppressing? She's oppressed.
By
People who live in Tembelihle are oppressed.
By who?
Maybe we need to answer that question. Kone?
I think we should look at all the facts. I can assure the gentleman and the lady, unfortunately, that I can assure you there are some white informal settlements today in South Africa.
How many?
Where?
Okay. How many white people are living in squatter camps?
If you don't like the facts, it's no use to shout. You have to accept that there's a reality. Obviously, in terms of percentages, it's a lesser percentage.
Loveland? For me, an ideal South Africa would be a South Africa where we have white maids, white security guards, white people in informal settlements, and then we have more black people in positions, as more black lawyers, more black...
I think this man is very wrong. How can you say that just because Cyril Ramaphosa is owning some properties in South Africa, and then we have also some white people owning properties? Cyril Ramaphosa is just a rich man who happens to also be the president of South Africa. But everyone can't be a president of a country. It's logical. So you can't explain because a 1 billionaire who is black is he's equivalent to all other Africans who are living in that country. It's a fallacy of composition. Just because one happens to have properties, why? The rest also happens to have one property, to have the same property of why? Because they're coming from the same container. No, I don't think that's true. And this guy is a lie. Maybe he's married to a white person. Maybe he has a reason why he's doing this. Maybe they're having a business deal with white people. Maybe, I'm not certain. But this, what he has said right now, these are total lie.
Accountants, more black people living in decent housing, etc.
All right, Ayabonga, who's doing the oppressing?
Look, I think it's a combination of the historically white entrenched and established interests in South Africa, combined with, of course, this new black elite that Utatumpegi is talking about. I mean, if you think about BEE, all it is just crumbs trickling off the white table in service and in perpetuation and in continuation of the ritual.
I just want to say something. You know, the most disempowering, destructive and devastating racism is not personal racism. The penny sparrows can spew as much racist filth as they want to. It doesn't kill anyone. You must address the fact that the ANC left intact, virtually untouched. This, when Malema and them speak about white monopoly capital, it's not a myth. It's a devastating reality in the lives of people. So, you know, the question of the black elite, it's true they're feeding from the crumbs that fall from the table of white monopoly capital, but what you also need to address is that the intra-racial, meaning within the black population, growing class inequalities has now outstripped the interracial inequalities between black and white. This is it. The Anglo-Americans, all of these people dominate this economy. This bloodless, this jobless bloodbath that Bhavi speaks about is a direct consequence of the fact that this economy, where it's a powerful country, we live in the most powerful city in Africa, Johannesburg, and people are living in shacks. That is the most important racism that's linked to to institutional structural issues that I want to hear more about, and I'm not hearing that. I don't want to talk about the penny sparrows. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to take a short break. You are watching The Big Debate.
Julle dink. Julle kan ons erfenis vat. Wanneer julle het ons nasie gevat. Ek het vir my mense voorheen gewaarsku dat julle is ons land se eie gif, a disease that must be contained into townships. Please understand that snuffing out your lights at night was our way of keeping our hopes alive and yours from resurfacing.
No. Wait. I'm sorry for my blood. That not enough of it was shed, that the blood on me was always yours, not mine, that every step I take leaves footprints in your blood. I'm going to breathe in and dissolve, reconstitute myself in the air, throw my bones for you, bonfire my skin as sacrifice, freeing myself for me, for you, for the stars that shine white in the black sky. No, wait, they shine jewel colors and the sky is blue to purple. No, wait, the stars are fading. The sky flashes blood red, settles into velvet. The moon is yellow-orange. Colors roam only in browns, and I can finally breathe. Because I am the small particles of dark I have always been, and I have nothing to do with explosions. No. Wait.
You forget to mention that whiteness was a prerequisite, so I guess the helix of your DNA is the corporate ladder that you climb to be above us. Even our flag segregates us, betrays us, by trading in the fields and gold that you bought with our blood on our land.
Welcome back to the big debate on race, inequality, and whiteness. I'm Masachaba Ndlovu, and you've just been listening to Tshepo Molefe and Sarah Gottsell, who is a young poet. They both are. Sarah happens to be the daughter of Bobby Gottsell, the former CEO of Anglo Gold Ashanti. Thank you both so much for making the time to be here. That was one heck of a poem. And the part that particularly stood out for me was when you said you're sorry that not enough of your blood was shared.
The poem is supposed to be an apology that shows that it's never big enough, that it's never enough, that's the no wait. And you've also referenced my father. I'm living in a legacy that I'm trying to undo.
What do you mean when you say that you are living a legacy that you're trying to undo?
I'm trying to find ways to live that will actively speak to the project of disrupting whiteness, of disrupting myself, but at the same time not wanting to make it about me. The point about education, land speaks to wealth, which speaks to education, you know, so how everything is tied, and how we can address, how I can address all that aspects of that in my personal and whatever other capacities that I have.
So do you think capitalist, wealthy...
There's a particular proverb that goes, do not let the cat take care of the milk when you're away, do not give the cat the responsibility of protecting the milk. Because you know what will happen, cats and milk, you know how they do their things. Now, people who in their nature have a weakness on doing particular tasks should not be given the responsibility of executing or having the responsibility of going on with that task. For this man, the cat is the black person and he is the milk. Now the owner of the cat and the milk is the parents of this young man who is saying his parents always told her, or told him rather, about black people being bad, all those negative stereotypes he was told by his white parents. Ironically, his parents left the cat with the milk, but surprisingly, they came back, they found the milk where it was, and the cat did not touch that milk. So the black person, who is the cat, never did anything wrong to the white person, to the white baby. He was a baby back then. You understand? This tells you how much negativity can affect your mindset, and how much negativity or hearing bad news about someone else can really taint your image of that person, when in real occasion, that person is not really as you are told. That person may be having the kindest of heart. I think experience beats it all. Experience tells us the truth about an individual. The things that have been told about black people by the mainstream media have been there to damage us, have been there to cause division, because when the black people are divided, exploitation is maximized, and when black people are unified, exploitation is close to null. That is a strategy that the oppressors...
White families like the Ruperts should give away their land, give away their money.
Yes.
All right. Do you feel guilty?
I feel that I don't have to apologize because I personally did not take part in apartheid. And in my heart,
so can we say no?
Yeah, I feel sorry for each and every person that was disadvantaged by apartheid. But you can't say that young people today still have to apologize. We also want to...
I don't think anyone's just asking for an apology. I think that happened with the TRC. So, Wanelisa.
You know, Ms. Chaba, I'm sitting as a black, poor, dispossessed woman in this country and having to listen to Monique saying she's not guilty. But I'm living under white supremacy right now. And we skip away of the violence of white supremacy because we talk about the township, we talk about poverty as things that are it's just irrelevant. That lady's story is so powerful because it's the story of my mother, it's my story, it's the story of every black person in this room who has been dispossessed, who lives under violence every day in this country. So I'm sorry, Sarah, I don't want you to live in ways that you want to give back the land, because I want to take back the land, because for me, psychologically, it's very important that I take back the land. You don't give it back to me because it was taken back forcefully under colonialism. So I want to decolonize this country. And maybe if it means that an army of black people in this country take arms in order to do that, then maybe it needs to happen. But I'm tired of these debates. I'm tired of these debates.
Is that progressive or regressive? Do we need to have war for that to happen? I don't think so. What do you think?
When you've taken the land back, make sure you give it to the rightful owners in terms of the truth. Give it to the Khoi and the San people there.
Yes!
They are the rightful owners. If you want to take back the land, give it to the rightful owners. But you see, the problem is this.
So are you saying that black people are also not the rightful owners of this land?
If the black people are the rightful owners, where did they get the land?
Is that what you're saying?
No. History is much more complicated than that. Much more complicated. And we can go and have a look at that. But it's a myth. It's a myth to just claim that everything belonged to this, nothing belonged to that. It's a myth. If people start talking about war, we are in a very, very dangerous situation. It's very easy to incite violence. You don't know what you're talking about now. I would suggest that we all move away from that.
Wait a second. Hold on a second.
And luckily I know that the majority of people in this country from different communities are not interested in violence, they are not interested in conflict and war. Those are side elements that should not be allowed to destroy the fabric of social cohesion in this country.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Social cohesion.
If you want my land, you can come and take it right now. I've never owned any land anywhere, ever.
This lady here is giving a certain important point that not only happened in South Africa, but it happened to the entire African continent as a whole, the entire 55 or 54 countries we have in the continent today. You understand? When the white man came here, he's sick. He went straight to those prime lands. Prime lands are the lands where most fertile, you plant food, you get the best produce, you get the best product from them. Here in Kenya, we have the Kenyan highlands. We have places such as the Kalenjin regions, where the Rift Valley region, where we have a lot of tea being grown there. Tea requires cool and wet climate. We also have the Mount Kenya region, where they planted coffee, they planted pineapples, they planted all sorts of fruits in that place. And these fruits were planted as cash crops. They were being exported back to their own countries. We also had the horticultural farming, places where would produce good flowers that would be then transported to the Netherlands. The white person, when he came to Africa as a colonizer, he went straight to the prime lands. So what this lady is saying is true. I'm not saying that the prime lands were empty, waiting for the white people to come. These prime lands were occupied by Africans. And because the white person had superior manpower, had superior weapons, they were tactical and all that, they came, enticed some of our African chiefs, gave them something small at the expense of the larger community, and took away our farmlands by chasing us away to squatters and them having the prime lands. And that's why you see this lady, she's complaining that it's only in her home that she sees people having those bad lands, but she's not seen a place where it's so bad, and she could possibly see, she could possibly hear that that place, we have white people living in that squatter. She didn't say that. But of course we have some places in South Africa where we have poor South Africans. We have such places, but this is a very, very small percentage. As you know, minority do not make the rule of law. This lady is right by saying this, and I totally agree by what she's saying. Share your thoughts on the comment section about this. Let's continue watching.
I'd like to make a proposal though. Right? In all these debates, a lot of people forget, right, that our government actually owns almost half of all the land in South Africa.
No, that's not true. Don't lie. Don't lie.
At national,
don't lie. You're lying. You're lying.
At national and provincial level, it's 24%, and at municipal level, we don't really know, but we estimate about 25%.
All right, let's let him finish.
Also, the government owns a lot of national assets in terms of state-owned enterprises, right? And a lot. It's not only the big guys, right? Why would the government need to own a diamond mine, right? Now, the government could, in very short order, right, make a huge dent in economic inequality. I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems, right, but make a huge difference, right, by giving that back to the people. Right? It used to belong to the Apartheid government, now it belongs to the ANC government. Right? Go along with the Freedom Charter. Say, let the people own these national assets. Right? They did that with Telkom. They did that with Telkom to an extent.
All right. Okay. Henny, are we destined for war?
I don't think we should wish for war. I think, Masachaba, we speak easily about it, and I understand our frustration, but I think we must, in respecting those who fought for our freedom and who have fallen, we shouldn't wish this thing back upon us. But equally must, and it is our freedom for all of us and a responsibility to act. And I say equally for white people to act responsibly. And while we talk about the land issue, and it is fundamental, I think equally we have to talk about our economy. We have to say every year about 300 billion rand leaves this country in capital that very wealthy people own, which they move offshore. It's a fundamentally unpatriotic act that happens of undermining the future of this country. It's that which we need to equally hold responsible, to say to those who have money that we are going to look at ways in which that money must be reinvested in the future of all of our people.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. When we return, the final word from our audience and our panel. This is The Big Debate. Welcome back to The Big Debate on racism, inequality, and white privilege. South Africa is certainly more divided than ever. What will it take to create a real non-racist society?
I think it's very important for us not to individualize this issue because I do think that we are already in an incredibly polarized condition at the moment that's been rising over the past few years. So the thing is, we are in a situation of contestation. Let's keep up that political contestation around ideas. What are the best models? What are the best ways to dismantle whiteness, dismantle white privilege, and look at but to throw out the constitution in the process, to say we need a war to fix this, I think is actually not actually giving credence to the lives that were lost, to the very hard battles that were fought.
I think we need to understand that there is no vehicle in this country that is being used to drive social cohesion. Apartheid fell after de Klerk had a whites-only referendum, after the sports movement was crippled in this country. I think we need to look at a vehicle that can drive us forward. Roads must fall indeed, but there's lots of other things that need to fall along with it.
When land was violently taken from black people, it was taken as a resource to life, to access to life. When 35,000 families own 80% of the land in South Africa, they own the economy of South Africa. The struggle towards building a new country that is black, because South Africa is first and foremost a black country that should portray African values. That struggle should only be led by black people.
I incidentally don't share the idea that the problem that we're dealing with here is whiteness. It's capitalism. The deal that was signed at CODESA was calculated to preserve the ownership of the commanding heights of the economy, the banks, the mines, the big commercial farms and so forth, in the hands of the capitalist class. The basis of that agreement...
Well, it seems racism is not just about attitudes. It's also about the power to harm other people's lives. And in South Africa today, millions of black people's lives are damaged by an economy and a society which is rigged in favor of the rich.
You know, it's such a beautiful thing that we have people coming from different cultures, coming together, talking together, and finding solution to their problem. This is what the whole world needs. This is what Africa needs. South Africa is called the country of rainbow, or the rainbow nation. It's not called the rainbow nation because of the rainbow community, but it is called the rainbow nation because South Africa has very diverse cultures, diverse races, diverse people, diverse religions. In South Africa we have the coloreds, we have the whites, we have the blacks, we have the Indians, we have the Chinese. Think of anyone, you will find them in South Africa. And South Africa is the most developed country in sub-Saharan Africa, or in the global south. And that is something we should be proud about. We should now think of ourselves as a single race, the human race. Nobody is greater or nobody is lesser than the other in South Africa. And having such debates is a reminder of such notion that we are a single human race. Yes, but in as much as we are a single human race, we should live in harmony in a way that we are able to recognize the wrong things and working towards correcting these wrong things in order to make amendments for peaceful coexistence of each community in a way that one community does not feel oppressed by another. Yes. This is EFK Original Documentaries. If you like my content, kindly give me a subscription, support me on Patreon. I will so much appreciate. Be a member of this channel and see you in the next one.